Wonderful. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Chanel Autry. I serve as chair of the Business Council for AAMA, and I'm so glad that you all are here this afternoon to learn a little bit more about our standing and special policy committees and how you as a Business Council member can get involved. This will be a great opportunity to learn more from Ice Miller and from others involved, our external stakeholders, about how you can get involved in these key committees. This year, those committees include the Task Force on Reproductive Health Care and Maternal Health. They include a task force on wealth creation. They also include task force on public safety and accountability, as well as housing and community development and transportation and infrastructure. So you have a plethora of opportunities to get engaged. I will turn it over now to Quay to provide some background insight and information into the communications portion of things. Quay?
Good afternoon, Business Council and friends. My name is Quay Noel Kelch. I am Vice President of Media Relations for Mercury Public Affairs. I am going to start we're going to have just a very brief slideshow, so I can just show you a graphic here. Is that up on the screen? There we go. Mercury Public Affairs is a bipartisan government relations and strategic communications firm. It was established in 1999. We have 13 offices across the country. We do a wide variety of things from government relations to public relations, grassroots mobilization. You see in front of you our team here, led by Charlie King, our managing partner, Clay Middleton, our managing director, and my two colleagues who are also on today, Olivia DeLuca, Vice President, and Will Miller, Vice President. A little bit more about what we do for AAMA. Let's go to that next slide. We do a little bit of everything for AAMA. We provide all sorts of communications for AAMA. We write statements. We write press releases. We are responsive to whatever goes on in the news. We handle event communications. You'll see on your left here some of the hits, our recent hits from AAMA's National Conference in Atlanta. We had a great turnout of reporters, about 30 reporters turned out, local and national. We had mayors on CNN and in the AP and in many, many local publications. We develop and execute earned media campaigns to amplify the partnerships that AAMA has with the Business Council. We amplify any member mayor communications that are connected with AAMA. And we work to identify media opportunities for AAMA and member mayors. Another thing that we do is we work with Ice Miller to create statements, and we work on media toolkits for mayors to engage in AAMA policy and priorities. Some of the statements that we've worked on with Ice Miller include nominations of key officials to government boards. We've talked about policy recommendations on reduction of gun violence, federal funding for specific programs in bills, anti-DEI legislation, and key federal rulings. Our toolkits are created and sent out to mayors every 2 weeks. Our hope is that they will engage with a particular topic that we've shared with them. We work with Ice Miller to create social media postings and also to talk about policy recommendations. Sorry about the siren in the background. I'm in New York City where noises like this all the time. It's passing. But one of the toolkits we worked on recently was our Grants Pass toolkit, which was the Supreme Court decision that would allow cities and states to ticket, fine, and jail homeless people sleeping outside. We've also talked about the recent ruling about the Minority Business Development Agency and other key court rulings that Ice Miller has been very instrumental in helping us share policy with mayors. We also sometimes work with mayors individually if they have a crisis or if they have crisis communications. We try to help them with their issues and help amplify anything that they want to share that's related to AAMA. So that's it for communications. I am going to throw it to Jared at Ice Miller.
Fantastic. Thank you, Quay. And if you all don't mind, I would like to share my screen. Give me 1 second. You all know that always takes like a few seconds. We'll be there momentarily. All right, can you all see my screen?
Yep, we can see it.
All right. So, good afternoon. It's a pleasure to always be with the AAMA team and to talk about some of the work that we're doing around public policy. So, our engagement as Ice Miller, we are a full service law firm, but our law firm also includes the practice that I co lead, which is our government affairs and regulatory law practice. And so, our work with AAMA is twofold. One, when legal issues arise, from contracts to employment issues to day-to-day issues that arise in the operation of the organization, we're your lawyers. We're also policy counsel. And so in policy counsel, I think is what we'll probably talk much more about today is we do everything kind of to Quay's point, right? We work with the communications function to amplify the work that our mayors are doing, but also what AMA is doing. And we also work directly with our cities because we learn that many times our mayors need really specific help around a discrete issue that may involve federal policy where we can be helpful. More broadly, I think to Chanel's point, we also advise and help to support our various standing policy committees and task forces, which will address which ones and what they do in a second. But I wanted to talk more broadly about like what actually does the policy work look like? And it looks a lot of different ways depending on the objectives that we're seeking. One is direct advocacy. We've had, for example, in the last year, issues around HBCU funding where AMA directly went to the relevant committees and to the HBCU Congressional Caucus around funding disparities and asking and seeking relief through the Farm Bill, which is still pending. That's just one example, but we've done that on a host of issues, often through letters and direct conversations around appropriations, Black home ownership, you name it, things that our mayors seek to lead on in their cities. Nomination support. We have occasionally we have the pleasure of supporting former AMA members who may be seeking federal appointments. Last year, for example, the FAA was considering a former AMA appointed airport director out in Denver to potentially lead the FAA. We know, I think, at AMA that who is in the chair is really important in these agencies, especially agencies that run programs that directly affect your city's operations. And so we watch vacancies closely as a policy team. And when there are nominees for various roles to agencies that affect what AMA does, we will occasionally issue a letter of support in support of that nominee. Technical support for our mayors. So it's great when we can do the broader policy work where we say this is AMA's position on something. We want AMA to do X, Y, Z. But oftentimes we find that our mayors want specific support. And so one of the things that we've launched very recently are office hours, where once a week we'll set aside about an hour for any city that is AMA led, that has a specific discrete issue or question that our team can help them think through, strategize around, identify resources for, and ultimately resolve. Advocacy letters, very important. Congress, like any other legislative body, regularly will make decisions in part based on things that people tell them in written advocacy letters. And so the advocacy letter for us takes a lot of forms. Oftentimes it's about appropriations where we want certain programs funded at certain levels. It could be in support or in opposition of legislation. But advocacy letters also take the form of comment letters. It is common for, especially for business council members, to flag a regulatory issue for us and our team and seek to get AMA to weigh in on an issue. And that is also a form of advocacy, in that case, regulatory advocacy. Sign-on campaigns, very common. Our policy team commonly gets questions about would AMA be willing to sign on to a letter that is in support of an issue. If the issue in the letter is aligned with issue, with AMA and AMA policy positions and things that AMA mayors care about, we'll consider it. Mayoral webinars. We've done informationals on, for example, the Inflation Reduction Act, and other issues in Washington where we're sharing information, where again, broad policy issues are really important to weigh in on, but oftentimes mayors and cities are too busy. They're busy running cities. And so a part of our role is to share information about what's happening in Washington, special events. Occasionally, like this July, we're going to have a Black Mayors Tech Roundtable. We are opportunistically finding ways to get in front of mayors to talk about discrete issues where our policy work translates into conversations, fireside chats. We bring in experts, people who can talk about a discrete issue that a mayor or a city can address. Our work is also strengthened by strategic partnerships. AAMA works with organizations like Black Innovation Alliance, Mayors Against Illegal Guns, National Association of Real Estate Brokers on home ownership issues. We can't do it all. And our mayors do so many things around the country and they work on so many issues. We're always looking for strategic partnerships where we can team up on letters or policy issues. U.S. Conference of Mayors, I think, is an obvious one. And last, it's working with our colleagues at Mercury and supporting AAMA strategic communication efforts. And so last year, similar to what we see in the U.S. Conference of Mayors, we thought that it would be important to organize AAMA's policy work through policy committees. And so the policy committees are designed to be broadly defined groups of mayors, and we hope to get business council members involved. And we'll talk a little bit about that later in the life of these policy committees, where we are standing issues that broadly cover the beachfront on a handful of really large issues that every city has to deal with. Public safety, community development, and transportation are core issues that we know every city has to address. And so we've sought to address those through 3 standing policy committees and 3 task forces. And so in the policy committee, and I'll talk about the difference between the two, we talk about the purposes of each of the committees. I'll run through them quickly. I won't read them, but I'll summarize them. Transportation, infrastructure, and resilience. And there's a reason why I got 3 words. Yes, it's important to move people and goods between destinations, but it's also, when we talk about infrastructure, we talk about things like broadband. We talk about things that aren't just roads and bridges and ports and airports, but how we move information. Because in this economy, being able to host data centers and major economic development activity in any capacity, including large residential developments, means you got to have broadband infrastructure. And so now, with the infrastructure bills now a reality, and we have the Inflation Reduction Act, we thought it'd be really important to have a standing policy committee that helps our mayors navigate all of the various resources for transportation, infrastructure, and resiliency. Because what we have often found are things like flooding, right? Climate change. So many things affect our cities. We need a hub for that activity and that thinking. Second, we have a standing policy committee on housing and community development. So that is everything. That is affordable housing. That is community finance. That's economic development. How do we build the communities and the workforces of the future? Is what we talk about here. And like every policy committee, and I think a theme that we weave throughout our work is, what is the unique perspective that Black mayors bring to the table on these policy issues? And I think that's what distinguishes us from other organizations like the U.S. Conference of Mayors, for example, where we speak specifically to the Black experience, both as residents and as executives of our municipalities. And we bring that perspective through the work of these committees. Lastly is public safety and accountability. I think it's really important, post George Floyd, that our executives are able to articulate not only a vision for community public safety that includes law enforcement, but the non-law enforcement dimensions and elements of community public safety and what that means in your community and what resources are out there to make community public safety a reality. And so that's why the key words there are comprehensive community public safety strategies. And again, accountability, because I think it's really important for everyone to have rules of the road for how we police our communities. And I think we can all say that I think Black mayors are in a very unique role in that space as well, in that communities expect more from Black mayors in terms of how they will also hold public safety accountable when there are issues of misconduct. And so we want to make sure that there is a space and a hub for that work. The policy infrastructure for us also includes task forces. So what's the difference between a committee and a task force? Well, a committee deals with a whole bunch of issues. It's plenary, right? It is a very broad set of issues that we seek to tackle. The task forces are very narrow, and you'll see that they focus on very discrete issues that occasionally our mayors have to deal with in ways that we felt like there was a narrow focus specifically on something, and we didn't want it swallowed up in some of the larger committees. And so, wealth creation, the black white wealth gap, every one of our mayors, when they talk to us, this issue comes up. And so, we focus on entrepreneurship, homeownership as issues that things that drive wealth creation, as well as we play some defense here, right? Because many of our municipalities have had to answer around questions of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and the future of DE&I in our cities. DE&I is under attack, but also I think it's worth noting that things like public contracting, private contracts, are also subject to litigation. And so our mayors wanted a place where they could strategize around how do we talk about the future of DE&I? How do we protect it in our cities? And how do we create wealth in our cities? Migration and resettlement, I think, is another issue that we've seen arise in the last maybe 2 years, where governors from other states are literally busing and flying refugees and folks who are looking to be processed in the U.S. to sanctuary states and cities. Many of them are led by AAMA mayors. And so we've had mayors like Mayor Park in Philadelphia, Mayor Johnson in Chicago, Mayor Adams in New York, Mayor Bass in Los Angeles, who have been targeted for this kind of activity. And so we felt that as a community, as AAMA, we've got to think about how we can be helpful to one another, exchange information in that regard. But also the key word is resettlement. Because some of our mayors have said, hey, look, if you can get a work authorization, my city needs people who do fill in the blank. And so I think a part of the long-term strategy around this issue is how do we resettle people? And to the extent that there is an information sharing between AAMA mayors on how we bring some resolution to this really difficult issue, we should create a space for that. And finally, Black maternal health. It goes without saying that Black mayors have a unique role to play in many cases. Some of them have health departments. Many of them are connected to their county health departments, where that is the site of kind of public health policy. And Black maternal health still remains, and reproductive health care access. Post the Dobbs decision, our cities were again pushed in this role of one, they're employers. And so they have to think through how do we make reproductive healthcare access a reality for our employees. Second, we live in cities, and we live in cities where people are seeking these services and often come to our cities for these services. And we have to have an answer about what we do in our cities around this issue. Third, when we talk about Black maternal health, longstanding issues that we would like to see more leadership on. And I think as an organization like AAMA, I think the mayor said, why not us? And so last year we partnered with the Clinton Global Initiative to create a Black maternal health toolkit, where if a mayor says, hey, look, I want to address this issue in my city, we say, here's a playbook for you to consider that can help you identify the ways that you can help to address this issue. So in that work that we've done with our task forces, here's what we've learned. We've learned the mayors are critical, but we've got to do a better job of getting our senior policy staff and other parts of the AAMA ecosystem involved in these policy committees, because they're important, but they need day-to-day kind of TLC. Policy initiatives are needed and helpful, but I think ultimately we need funding, right? And so one of the things that we learned with the Black Maternal Health Kit was it was appreciated, but now we're in the process of looking for philanthropic partners who can help fund the kind of Black maternal health focused initiatives that could be AAMA led. Third, occasionally the way that we have gotten information about, what policy issues to address has been informal. A business council member may send an email, they may send a text. The policy committee process is something that we want to do a better job is formally, how do we bring intake issues, assign them to the policy committees for their consideration, and how we develop a position as a community, as an AAMA community. Fourth, I think one of the things that we want to do while we're having this conversation is we want to find a way to more formally incorporate the policy priorities of business council members into the work of these policy committees. And finally, we've seen that the mayors that have been the most active tend to be larger cities. We want to be far more intentional about bringing smaller cities into the work of our policy committees. So how can, a business council member be helpful with the policy work that we do? Number one is issue spotting. You know so many issues by virtue of the work you do day to day that we don't know or see. You all are content and subject matter experts. And so bringing it to AAMA's attention, say, hey, look, the mayor should have a position on this policy. Here's what we think is the nexus between, where our industry sits and where mayor should sit. And here's why AAMA should care. And just raising this and kind of being a constant source of AAMA should be thinking and taking a position on this is, I think, a really critical role for the business council to play in the policy infrastructure, the policy work that we do. Comment letter drafting and collaboration. If there's an administrative notice and comment opportunity for anything, it could be an RFI, it could be a pure notice and comment rulemaking. If there's a position that AAMA should be taking, we should know about it. But if you bring it to us, we'll collaborate. You should tell us what matters to you and what you think regulators should know, and then we can collaborate on what an AAMA comment letter would look like. Appropriations, tell us what those priorities are too, because we spend a lot of time on appropriations. And so to the extent that you can flag those for us, always helpful. Position development. Sometimes these are issues of first impression for our team, but not for you as a business council member. And so to the extent that the business council has a position that they think AAMA should take, tell us what it is. And we'd be happy to not only have the conversation, but flag this for other members of the business council, of a policy committee, and get their take on it too. And I think we want to have more of a collaborative process on issues that maybe AAMA's not done a lot of work on, but tell us what we should be doing. Direct support to AAMA mayors. We have the office hours, but again, in many cases, there are going to be issues that your company or your firm is aware of and that you think mayors should know about, or something in a city where that mayor should be aware of it. Bring it to our attention. And that's a way for us to talk to these mayors and say, hey, look, this is an issue that matters. This is what's going on in your city. These are the positions that we think make sense, so forth and so on. And that is a way where sometimes you got to go direct to the source, because there's sometimes very discrete issues that are happening. So a part of the discussion we'd like to have is, how do we go about getting business council members and kind of understanding what matters to them, understanding how they'd like to engage and what optimal engagement looks like for you, and ultimately what you want to see and what you'd like to see from AAMA's policy operations. So thank you again for your time, and we look forward to a robust discussion about the future of AAMA's policy infrastructure.
Thanks so much, Jared. So now I am going to open it up for question and answers, and then we'll talk about next steps and some action items for our entire business council. Are there any questions from attendees? Feel free to raise your hand or put them in the chat.
Well, let me say this. This is Pete Meadows. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Pete.
Well, I'm not good about raising my hands and putting stuff in the chat. I just speak out. So I apologize for that. But Jared, will you be our contact for Ice Miller? Can we contact you directly, or do we still go through AAMA?
I think it would probably be best to do both, to keep us all looped in on any business council communication. Would be both through AAMA and myself.
Okay. The other question I have is the July roundtable discussion, and I don't have the email that has all the detail about that, but I believe there was something on it about broadband. I'm sorry, Jared, let me introduce myself. I'm Pete Meadows with AT&T. I do believe there was some discussion around broadband that's taking place during that July meeting. And one of my questions was, as a member of the business council, I had no notice or notification about that until after the email came out. If there's some kind of way, if there's something that's going to impact our industry, if we could be notified up front, even if we don't participate in it, but at least give us the notification that this is coming ahead of time. Maybe we can contribute some subject matter experts to give some documented points. But some kind of way that partnership, I don't know who determines who sits on that panel, but I think all members that are impacted by that should be notified.
Yeah, I'm not aware of broadband being a part of the July conversation. Think it's more of a tech entrepreneurship conversation. So I'm not aware of broadband.
Okay, and it may not be. I just remember seeing something on it. I didn't get it, but I don't know. Even if it's tech, something that could have an impact related to our industry in some form or fashion. So
Ash-
I just go ahead, Chanel. I see you.
I was
itching
gonna
to get
say,
in.
actually, I think it'd be helpful for you to distinguish the Board of Trustees meeting that's coming up and the opportunity that kind of is differentiated based on your level of sponsorship. So if you could
Certainly.
hear.
So at the board meeting, we do have opportunities once for resolutions. So as you know, that is open to every single business council member for you to submit a resolution. All you have to do is send that to us and we will present it to the board for approval. And then we will post it on our website for support once it is approved, if it is approved. Another option that we have is for the higher business council members, that's of I believe 75,000 and above. They receive invites to attend our in-person board meetings. So they get that one-on-one time with the leadership of AAMA. We have receptions, and oftentimes with our in-person board meetings, we also have educational items too. Some business council members do hosted tours of their facilities, or they have those roundtable discussions. The infrastructure conversation I'm thinking about is probably what you're referring to when we did our winter reception earlier in January. We did have a roundtable there, and everyone was invited to the table, but we did have certain speakers. So certainly I hear you, Pete, for about speaking opportunities, making sure that we can invite the ones who are already on our business council to contribute to the conversation. But I hear you about letting you know what's the subject matter that they're having at our board meetings, as far as what the leadership is talking about, as well as additional business council or AAMA membership events, letting you know that in advance. But there are different opportunities that look different for different sponsorship levels.
Okay. Thank you.
And so I see Michelle also in the comments says she would like information about July. I'll definitely get with Phyllis to make sure we can share everything once it's finalized. But again, our board meeting for July will be the 25th to the 27th in New York. The higher business council members have received that email and that information. And so, but what I can do is let the entire business council members know the content and that will be taking place during the week, so you all know what discussions the leadership will be having that week.
Thank you for that, Ashley. Hi, everyone. This is Michelle Cover at Verizon. Thank you for that. And I didn't realize that we were just looking at the slide and it looked like it was something that may have been open to all of us, but also just from a marketing perspective, it may be helpful if you all say, these are the things that you're missing. And it could be something where we're able to go back to leadership and say, look, we may need to bump up our AAMA participation because that would give us more access to meetings that are important to us. So giving us that insight could be helpful both for us and for you guys.
Thanks, Michelle. That's a great point. We would love to have you bump up. Any more questions from the audience? Feel free to put in the chat or come off mute if you like.
No question, but this is Labria Holt with BGR Group. I just want to say, Jared, that was a really good overview of the policy. Thank you for that. Is there a way for us to get a copy of the PowerPoint presentation?
Absolutely.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
No, thanks for doing that. It was a good overview.
Thank you.
So now I want to kind of talk about the action items that are next for the Business Council. As Jared mentioned, we want participation from you all. We want to collaborate with our Business Council members. We can't do it without those public and private partnerships. And so we're waiting on the link, but either today or tomorrow, you will receive a link to sign up for what you're interested in. So you can choose any of those task forces or committees and have these conversations with your leadership. Take it back to them and say, this is an opportunity for us to get better connected with AAMA, to let our voice be heard with the member mayors. Let us know what policy issues are important to you when you're filling out that form, and please engage with us. This is an opportunity for engagement. Definitely think about it as a benefit as your membership. We are going to start those meetings, the standing meetings, and we're not going to meet just to meet. Jared will tell you that's not his MO. If you're going to be having meetings, it's going to be productive work. So it's not going to be an overhaul for you all. We want to make sure that what you're getting out of the meetings is valuable to you and your organization. So there will be a form for you all to complete. Cody asked, when will we need the response by? Jared, I think you can kind of talk to our timeline for that. Like we said, this is new for us as far as committees, as well as bring on the Corporate Business Council. So Jared, I'll let you answer that question.
I think, whenever we send out kind of the Google form, we'll probably open it for maybe 30 days. So, I mean, this isn't something we need like a tomorrow type of response. It's something we want to encourage thoughtfulness, right? Where people like, this is how I think, we'd like to be engaged. And if you would like to be engaged in a way that you don't see, right? Tell me what that is. Personally, I've been on the in-house side of government relations as well, right? And so I know sometimes it takes a while to get your folks to be in line with what you need them to do. So I say maybe 30 days to kind of open it up and keep it open. And we're building the plane as we're flying it, right? When we started the work at AAMA a few years ago, there was no real policy infrastructure when we came in. And so we built it from scratch. And that's how we learned from our experience, I think, last year. And so complete blank slate. Like if you hated all of what you just saw, tell us why. I'm completely open to every, conversation about this. So definitely if you don't see something, let us know. And if there are ways that you think that we should be engaged that we're not, tell us. The only catch is you might be the one who will help us lead it. So you may be volunteering for the work as well. But we're happy to be collaborators in that regard as well.
I want to just support what Jared is saying there. I hope that each of you see this as a testament to us listening to you. And Chanel, Ashley, and I are just very intentional about how we can make this be the council that you want it to be, because we know that we can't do anything we do without you. And I truly appreciate all of the feedback, because we really are going to take it back and you will see those changes. So I want to say thank you, and let's keep it going.
Thank you, Essence. Any other questions or comments before we end our recording today?
One more, sorry. As it relates to submitting resolutions for consideration, what is the deadline on that?
The deadline, certainly. Normally we have a 30-day deadline, but because this board meeting has been moved up, a couple of timelines have been moved around. So we're going to do 2 weeks prior. That's going to be July 16th. And again, you'll receive a follow-up from Chanel tomorrow with those announcements and that information in it. But essentially all you need to do is send that to me. If you don't have my email, I'll put it in the chat, but it's ashley@ourmayors.org. And we add that to the board packet that our board receives.
Thank you.
All right, so this is recorded. We're going to send it out to the full Business Council members. If you'd like to share internally with your leadership, if they have any questions or if you need to reference it. But I want to say thank you so much for everyone to joining us today. We really appreciate your collaboration and your feedback. Like Essence said, we're here for you all. So just let me know if I can do anything. And thank you to our our policy consultants, Ice Miller, as well as our PR, Mercury. Thank you, Quay, for participating. They are resources for you all as well, as business council members. So just let us know what you need. So everyone have a great day.
Have a good one. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you.